Over 100 years ago, and at the beginning of the 20th century, Germany had colonial rule over what is now Namibia and called this state German Southwest Africa. Germans controlled and governed many different peoples within what is now Namibia and what was then German Southwest Africa. Some of these peoples include the Namaqua people, the Ovaherero people, and also the San people. The Namaqua and Ovaherero people were tired of being abused by the German colonial governments as they were being unjustly taxed and unpaid for hard labor. An uprising sparked against the German colonial rule in both the Herero and Nama people. The Herero people were led by Samuel Maha Herero, and the Nama people were led by Hendrik Witbooi. The Herero people were the first to rebel against the German colonial rule, as on January 12, 1904, they attacked 100 settlers in the area of Okahanja. They spared women and children, as well as all the British allies. The sparing of women and children, as well as the British allies, shows that the Herero people were not especially dangerous or malicious in their attacking of the German people. Troops were sent directly from Germany to reestablish the power in these African states, and they were led by General Lothar von Trotha. However, this attack in the Okahonta region sparked what are now known as the Herero Wars, the conflicts between the German people and the Herero people. In August of 1904, the Battle of Waterberg was set to end the Herero Wars. Herero leader Samuel Maha Herero was quite confident going into the battle as he outnumbered the Germans 5-1. But the Germans obtained something that the Herero did not: heavy artillery and weaponry. Although many German men did die during the Battle of Waterberg, the Herero power was diminished, as it is estimated that 3,000 to 5,000 of them died in battle. The German powers pushed the Herero people further and further into the Namib Desert and unjustly killed many men, women, and children as they suffered through dehydration and starvation. In the book Century of Genocide, Critical Essays and Eyewitness Accounts, author Samuel Taunton points out a quote from John Cloete, who acted as a guide and scout for the Germans. Cloete said this about the Hereros being trapped in the desert. I was present when the Hereros were defeated in the Battle of Hamariki in the vicinity of Waterberg. After the battle, all men, women, and children who fell into German hands, wounded or otherwise, were mercilessly put to death. Then the Germans set off in the pursuit of the rest, and all of those found by the side and in the Sambre were shot down or bayoneted to death. The mass of the Herero men were unarmed and thus unable to resist. They were just trying to get away. A number of the Herero people attempted to escape the German people by going towards the Omahiki region in the desert. They sought British territory as they were desperate for help. However, this plan failed as only 1,000 of the Herero people made it to the British territory in the Omahiki Desert. In late September of 1904, Luther von Trotha ordered his troops to patrol the desert and basically shut off all areas of the desert to prevent the Herero people from escaping the German reign. On October 2nd of 1904, Trotha issued this statement towards the Herero. I, the great general of the German soldiers, send this letter to the Herero. The Herero are German subjects no longer. They have killed, stolen, cut off the ears and other parts of the body of wounded soldiers, and are now too cowardly to fight any longer. I announce to the people that whoever hands me one of the chiefs shall receive 1,000 marks and 5,000 marks for Samuel Maharero. The Herero nation must leave the country now. If it refuses, I shall compel it to do so with the long tube, and that basically means cannon. Um, any Herero found inside the German frontier, with or without a gun, will be executed. I shall spare neither women or children. I shall give the order to drive them away and fire on them. Such are my words to the Herero people. The defeat of the Nama and Herero peoples led German leader Luther von Trotha to order his troops to kill every single Nama and Herero man. They also drove the women and children deep into the Namib Desert, causing many of them to die of dehydration and starvation. After thousands of Nama and Herero people, as well as the San people, died in the Namib Desert, the German people imprisoned many of the survivors and put them in concentration camps. The survivors of the massacre, who were mostly women and children, were eventually put in places like the Shark Island concentration camp. where many German officials forced them to work as slaves essentially and take care of German military work that the troops would normally do. Within the German concentration camps, like the one on Shark Island, many of the Nama and Herero people died of disease, starvation, dehydration, exhaustion, malnutrition, as the food and resources they were given by the German troops were inadequate and um, caused the people to suffer these deaths. Many of the people who were sent to Shark Island were also killed by being beat, shot, or even hung by the German troops. It is estimated that 80% of the Nama and Herero people that were sent to Shark Island eventually died there. The website Prevent Genocide International brings up a quote from Fred Cornell, who was a British diamond prospector in Lüderitz, where the Shark Island concentration camp was off the coast of, um, and he said this about the camp: "Cold, for the nights are often bitterly cold there. Hunger, thirst, exposure, disease, and madness claimed scores of victims every day, and cartloads of their body were every day carted over to the back of the beach, buried in a few inches of sand at low tide, and as the tide came in, the bodies went out, food for the sharks." It is estimated that nearly 125,000 Nama, Herero, and San people died in this genocide perpetrated by the German colonial government. Additionally, even the corpses of the Nama and Herero people were treated very poorly by the German troops and German people, as many of the prisoners were used for medical and scientific experiments while they were sick in the concentration camps. And the person who performed these experiments was a Dr. Bofinger, who would inject these Herero people with different substances such as opium. Additionally, Dr. Bofinger would research the autopsies of these Nama and Herero people that he would inject with substances like arsenic and opium, and document their effects. He also sent an estimated 300 skulls to Germany for research and experimentation. And recently, in some museums in Berlin and other parts of Germany, around 34 of the skulls were found and have finally been returned to Namibia for their proper burial. Although the camp on Shark Island that the Nama and Herero people were taken to was referred to as a concentration camp, it really served as a death camp, as many Nama and Herero people were taken there to be exterminated and killed. What really makes the Nama and Herero genocide such a tragedy is the treatment of this genocide after it happened. After the closure of all the concentration camps, the surviving Herero were forced to be laborers in different German towns throughout German Southwest Africa. Additionally, as I said previously, only 676 German soldiers died in combat, whereas over 100,000 Nama, Herero, and San people died during this genocide and during the Herero Wars. However, um, there was no commemoration or reparations paid for this genocide of the indigenous people of this area, and instead a equestrian monument in Windhoek was put up to remember the fallen German soldiers in Namibia, rather than a statue or commemoration for the indigenous people. Shortly thereafter, though, in World War I, the German colony of Southwest Africa was taken over by the Union of Southwest Africa, and as we know, Namibia eventually became a independent country. However, there's still lots of talks about the Nama and Herero genocide, and many of the indigenous population in Namibia feel that Germany has not paid the reparations that they should have for unjustly slaughtering their ancestors and um, disrespecting their culture. In the past 20 to 30 years, there have been numerous lawsuits filed from Namibians, specifically Hereros, even in the United States, that demand reparations from the German government, and specifically one bank in Germany, the Deutsche Bank, which financed uh, the German colonial government in South Africa at the time. After a series of failed negotiations and lawsuits, finally on May 20th, 2021, the German government finally agreed to give the Herero people in Namibia 1.1 billion euros in reparations for the immeasurable suffering they endured during this genocide and to help the communities that were impacted by it. As I said before, in August of 2008, the skulls of the Herero Nama prisoners that were experimented on in Germany were returned from the museums that they were unjustly put on display in for burial in their home country, Namibia. Additionally, in 2019, the German government gave back the Portuguese stone cross that they actually stole from Namibia in the 1900s. So there has been a series of reparations and repatriation from Germany to Namibia. However, it is unfortunate to see how long it took Germany to repay uh, the Herero and Nama people for the genocide, as it was over 100 years later. On a final note, the Nama and Herero genocide was an extremely devastating event in African history, and it is quite often overlooked as it is overshadowed by many of the other more prominent genocides in European history, such as the Holocaust. It is also a foreshadowing to the Holocaust, as both genocides were perpetrated by German governments. With that being said, the Nama and Herero genocide should never be overlooked, as it reveals the truths and the horrors of European colonialism in Africa and shows us the injustices that the indigenous African people had to face during this time.